In a landmark move that could reshape justice at the community level, South Sudan has updated parts of its customary legal system for the first time in more than 80 years. The revised Naath law, used across Jonglei, Unity, and Upper Nile states, introduces major changes, including limits on dowries, stronger protections for children, and the abolition of forced marriages. Backed by the United Nations mission in South Sudan, these reforms aim to align long-standing traditions with modern human rights standards. But what will this mean in practice for communities, and these changes, can they truly take hold? Well, to discuss this, I'm now joined by Anees Ahmed, who's the chief of the Rule of Law section at the United Nations mission in South Sudan. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So, Anees, just how significant is this reform of the Naath customary law, and why do you think it's taken more than 80 years for these changes to happen?
You know, South Sudan just became independent almost 15 years ago, and there are almost 62 different ethnic communities in this country, and most of them are governed by their own laws. And also, they're scattered in different parts of the country. As a result, communities scattered in different parts of the country also follow different sets of these laws while retaining the basic precepts. So I think one of the major communities, which is the newer community, which is also called the Naath community, adopted this through a community-led process. And I think every community reaches a conclusion that it needs a proper, discernible, identifiable law that should govern its community. One of the interesting parts of the South Sudanese constitutional scheme is that customary law is considered as part and parcel of the legal system. Customary law governs a lot of things like marriages, divorces, alimony, property disputes, etc. And I think that integration between customary and statutory law works well if both of them are properly discernible and known to people. And I think this community-led process has contributed in that direction. The last such consolidation happened in 1932 in the so-called Fungak law. Thereafter, everything has been existing in the form of either oral traditions or written traditions, which have not been consolidated. So I think this is a community-led process, which is very welcome, because then it will lead to ensuring that the laws that the community considers itself to be governed by are consistent with international standards, as you just described, outlying child marriage, discouraging bride price, discouraging revenge killings, discouraging collective punishment, outlying completely forced marriages, etc. So I think it's a positive development, and it's not government-led; it's community-led, which speaks a lot to the development of community and its maturity.
You mentioned community-led. Chiefs, I believe, were involved, community leaders, women's groups. Um, why was this so important for this to happen? Is it that customary law is pretty central to life in this part of the continent?
Yes, because the statutory courts are not completely available or accessible to a lot of citizens of the country. Therefore, customary chiefs play a very important role, both in respect of legal matters, but also in respect of providing support to the communities in its general matters also. So I think it was very important that this customary law that governs a major part of the civil system, which is marriage, divorce, as I said, alimony, property rights, is properly codified so that citizens can then enforce them rather than enforcing their rights through violent means. So I think the idea that they decide matters through legal, peaceful means rather than through non-legal, violent means was something that the community felt was important. And all the chiefs of 16 newer majority counties got together, discussed it over a long period, upwards of 6 months, took it back to the community, had extensive community consultations, and thereafter, last December, adopted it in a community-led process in which almost all the newer elders were present. So I think it was a very consensual, democratic, community-led process, which I think should be emulated by other communities, although other communities also have codified customary laws. But I think they also face the same problems. Either they are outdated, they're not consistent with modern human rights standards, or they are scattered such that people don't know what applies to them, or in respect of conflict, they don't know which part of the law governs them. So I think it's a gradual process which we have supported. So our role has been only from outside, supporting, catalytic, but it's a completely community-led process.
I mean, some of the changes are pretty major shifts in things that have been happening for centuries. Um, Introducing law is one thing, and enforcing it and making sure that people respect it is another one. Are you happy that these, or confident that these changes will hold?
I believe they will hold, and it's a work in progress. Now we will start the process of training the chiefs across the country, or at least across the newer majority parts of the country, so that they are fully aware of this. It's already been translated into the newer language, and then of course there'll have to be consultation processes so that these are then adopted by the majority of people. They are of it. We will circulate the copies of this law. So I think it's a work in progress, but it's a good development which we can build upon, and the community itself can take that lead through our support and the support of everyone else who's interested in advancement of a proper functioning legal system in this country.
Could the South Sudan experience perhaps offer a model for other African countries that are grappling with modernizing customary laws?
Absolutely. Dowry is a major problem in this part of the world. Dowry is converted into cows, and that leads to a lot of violence in respect of the so-called cattle raiding here. Cattle raiding is a major trigger of violence and conflict. So if dowry is reduced or controlled, if bride price is controlled, if collective punishment is controlled, if marriages become consensual rather than family-led, so I think it will lead to a major reduction in violence in this part of the world, and improvement, and to my mind, to use your word, modernization of the customary law, which I believe is the attempt of this process.
Anees, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for joining us and giving us some insights on this significant development.
Thank you for having me.
That was Anees Ahmed, who's the chief of the Rule of Law section at UN Mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, sharing insights on the historic reforms to the Naath customary law in South Sudan. Perhaps lessons for other countries on the continent in terms of modernizing long-held traditional beliefs, perhaps that don't serve us well. It's 7:30. It's time for your news headlines. Good morning once again to you, Jualani Tulongwepe.